Okay, good morning, everybody. It's a real pleasure to have you all here this morning. I can see that there's quite a few people that can keep joining, so because we're due to start at 10 a.m. prompt. So welcome everybody to the Inspiring Futures, Inspiring Careers event. And I'd just like to start off by saying a big thank you to Sabbath and the team at Hired for really organising this, and my colleagues within the school as well, because they've worked incredibly hard to bring together an absolutely amazing array of speakers this morning. And I just want to say thank you to them at the outset of this, because it's not an easy task in this virtual online world that they're in at the moment. But the students will be very familiar with that, and our guest speakers as well. So I just want to say thank you, and I really do wish everybody a really good morning. And I'm so pleased that we've managed to get a lineup of really hot, exciting speakers. So I'm just going to run through sort of who we've got here this morning, so we can start at 10 a.m. prompt, because people have got very busy schedules that are joining us. So. And we have a range of different speakers that represent our sectors this morning that many students here will be studying. So areas particularly around health and healthcare, mental health and working within the charity or the third sector, public health, nutrition and physical activity, and working in the community, and childcare, particularly with the NSPCC and teaching. So. A real array of speakers with careers that really are at the heart of the School of Health, Sport and Food here at University College Birmingham. And we start this morning, we've got Professor Adam Leyland, who's coming to talk to us. Adam is at Health Education England, but is coming to talk to us about his career in paramedics and how he got there. And I know Adam and I are very good friends. I know that he will really inspire you. And then we have Matt King, who is from the mental health and charity sector and is CEO of TrustLinks, which is a local independent charity for mental health and wellbeing in Essex, which has a turnover around £1 million. And he's going to be talking about roles and employment opportunities in the voluntary and community sector. And then at 11, we also have Anna Skeats, who's the CEO or the Chief Executive Officer of the Mason Foundation. Anna and I go back a long way. Anna was actually a student of mine many years ago at Liverpool Hope University, and we've remained colleagues and friends ever since. So that's nearly on 20 years ago. So I'm feeling very old now. I was a very young lecturer then. And Anna's going to be talking to us very much about her career, how she started off, but also how now she's working as a CEO for the charity. And then after the break, we've got Matt from the NSPCC, who's one of the Childline team managers based in Birmingham, going to be talking there about his role. And then finally, we finish off with Jessica, really interesting post in as assistant head at Brays School, working in a special needs school as an assistant head teacher. So really a real variety of different speakers, which I hope will inspire students. And what I would say today is to just sit back and listen and appreciate the journeys that all of our speakers have been on, and how they've got there, and perhaps how they've twisted and turned and meandered, and perhaps started out with one particular area that they wanted to work in, but may have then changed, almost like we change direction when we're on journeys. So without further ado, I'll start by introducing our first speaker, Professor Adam Leyland, whose career commenced when he joined Staffordshire Ambulance Service NHS Trust in 2005, working as a volunteer in the community and as a GP out of hours call taker in 2006. So welcome, Adam. Really delighted that you've joined us this morning. So I'll give the floor over to you.
Thank you, Anne. Good morning, everybody. It's an absolute pleasure to be with University Colleges Birmingham this morning, and hopefully I can share over the next short period of time a little bit of my experience of being a paramedic and what that means, and hopefully try and inspire some people to either want to become future paramedics or to at least consider the options that are available across healthcare in its entirety. So as Anne just said, I started out as a volunteer in the community as what's called a community first responder, a CFR. My career always wanted to take me to be a police officer. that's what I always wanted to do as a kid. You know, as you grow up, you know, you might go on a plane for a bit and then you want to be a pilot for about a week. But I always kept going back to be a police officer. And I had the opportunity in my late teens to become a volunteer for the ambulance service, at which point I absolutely fell in love with the idea of being a paramedic and being able to help people. And it kind of resonated, similar to the police in that respect, where you're going out to help people, but this was in a completely different way. And I absolutely fell in love with it. So at the time, I was still doing my A-levels and realised very quickly that I needed to do better in my A-levels to become a paramedic. And so I put a lot more effort in and was successful then in joining Sheffield Hallam University to take on a paramedic diploma in higher education at the time. I obviously worked with East Midlands Ambulance Service as part of that, as you can see in the comments, before I then qualified as a paramedic 2 years later. So I've been a paramedic for just over 13 years now. I'm a consultant paramedic in primary care, and I'll say a little bit about why paramedics are in primary care a little bit later. And as Dr. Kofopoulos said at the beginning, I'm the National Head of Commissioning for Health Education England. So I'm responsible for the commissioning of all health programmes around England and work with a lot of colleagues to do that. So what is a paramedic is probably the first place to start. When people think about this, the first thing you think of is, well, if I ring 999 and ask for an ambulance, I'll get a paramedic coming out to me. In most parts of the country, you are very likely to get a paramedic first time coming out to you, but in other parts, you're not. University College Birmingham, being based in the West Midlands, is very fortunate to have an ambulance service which is the best performing in the country, and I was extremely fortunate to work with them for quite a number of years as head of operations. And you are guaranteed to get a paramedic in the West Midlands if you call 999, but it's not the same everywhere, unfortunately, at the moment, because there is a shortage in paramedics across the country. Paramedics is a fairly young profession overall. So if you think of nursing as an example, we can think back to Florence Nightingale and hundreds of years of history of nursing, whereas paramedics are only 50 years old as a concept, really. And it started back in Brighton 50 years ago this year, actually, by a friend of mine, Professor Douglas Chamberlain, who was a cardiologist at the hospital in Brighton, and kind of introduced this role of being a paramedic out of hospital in the community. We'd had ambulance services for years before that. It was predominantly unskilled in a respect of nothing beyond first aid, and it was a transportation service to get you to the doctors and nurses at hospital. So 50 years ago, it started on a journey to professionalise and to really understand the skill set and the competencies required of working outside of hospital in very challenging and distressing situations. And fast forward 20 odd years from that, we had the first paramedic titles, which had proper qualifications attached to it in the late 70s, early 80s. And then it's developed from there. Now it is a degree profession. And this year is the first year that you have to have a degree to join the regulator. So paramedics are regulated in the United Kingdom by the Health and Care Professions Council, and they're part of 14 allied health professions which are regulated through that council. Paramedics deal with a bit of everything is the best way of putting it. The old saying is jack of all, master of none. However, it's definitely moving into a master of many things. So paramedics work across emergency, urgent and primary care, predominantly out of hospital, but I'll talk a little bit more about how the profession's developing in a little while. And so that kind of being able to deal with anything at any moment's notice is highly important as a skill set for a paramedic. And thinking about that spontaneity, you don't know what's coming. And it's absolutely one of the things that I've always loved about the role is you don't know what's next. You could be at one moment dealing with an elderly person who's fallen over and just can't get back up. They're not injured, they're absolutely fine. You check them over and make sure everything else is okay, and you help them up, and they're very happy, and you leave and off you go. To the next moment, you could be going out and delivering a baby, somebody who has had a complicated pregnancy, perhaps, or you could be going out to somebody who's been hit by a car. You just don't know what's going to happen at any moment being a paramedic. So paramedics deal with anything, and years ago we used to say you're a mix of different professions. So sometimes you're a little bit of a police officer using those skills. Sometimes you're a little bit of a social worker. Other times you're a little bit of a public health practitioner or a mental health practitioner. And you're dealing with that emergency care, those minor injuries and illnesses that people can get at any time. But it's not about driving fast on blue lights and with sirens going and getting through traffic. That's just a part of the job to help you get to the patient at the end. And it's really important to get there as fast as possible, so you can help people that need you at that moment in time. And of course, being a paramedic means working any time of the day, night, 365 days a year. Obviously, you don't work every day. That's the important thing. Rest and recuperation is absolutely important being a paramedic, as it is being any other healthcare professional as well. But you could literally be working at any moment on any shift. And the education and training has improved significantly to support paramedics to deal with anything at that moment in time. And if you just imagine for a second, if you've ever had to call 999 and ask for an ambulance, and you're giving the information to the call taker, when that information's passed over to the paramedic who's coming to see you, they don't know you. They don't necessarily know what's happened and what's gone on. They've got little bits of information from what's been said on the phone. And so you've got to have this kind of skill set which allows you to think through what you need to do and how you're going to deal with things. And there are structures and processes that we've developed through education and training over time, which leads to this structured methodological approach to dealing with patients. Some of you may have heard of it in the past. It's about ABC. So you do your airway, breathing, circulation, and it's kind of becomes a second nature as you go along. It's a little bit like, I suppose, akin to riding a bike. So when you first learn to ride a bike, you're a little bit unsteady, you don't know what's going on. That's your training phase, and you're thinking about it throughout until it becomes something you can just get on a bike at any moment and off you go. And I think that's absolutely one of the skill sets of being a paramedic, is being able to learn something fast, but use the support network around you from either consultant paramedics or the support specialist and advanced paramedics as well. And you just don't know what's going to happen. What I would say, though, is one of the biggest skills, and this goes for any healthcare profession as well, but definitely more so as a paramedic, is the communication aspect. Being able to talk to patients, being able to reassure relatives and any other persons that are there. If you're dealing with a patient who's been hit by a car, unfortunately, there could be lots of people standing around wanting to know what's going on. And nowadays, the first thing people get out are the phones, taking pictures and videos. And before you know it, it's on Twitter and everywhere. And so there's that element of communication, remaining professional, doing things right. We're a public service overall as paramedics, and it's vitally important that we remain in that state of mind throughout. But then not only is it about communicating, and if you push me and I had to guess, I'd say 85 to 90% of what we do is about communication. It's about asking the right questions. It's about listening to the answers and being able to use that information to develop an output for that patient and what that patient needs to do. On top of that, you've got the equipment that you use, the medicines that we give, determining those best needs and that output for the patient, whilst working really multi-professionally, so with GPs, with nurses, with pharmacists, with mental health practitioners. No longer are these roles just by themselves, they're absolutely integrated into the rest of the services provided. And also interagency working with the police and the fire service as well. So if you think about what a paramedic generally does on a day-to-day basis, it's predominantly going to be more elderly patients. So I don't know if anybody has watched the TV programs that happen. There's different ones on different channels. It gives a slight view of what happens as a paramedic, but predominantly it's supporting people who have got long-term conditions, who may be short of breath or may have chest pains, people who may have had strokes or low blood sugars, people who've fallen over and can't get back on their feet because they've not got that strength in their body overall. That's predominantly where at least 40, 50, 60% of activity being a paramedic will be. Probably higher than that, actually, probably more like 80%. But then you've also got the more serious things that we collectively will all know about. So your car crashes, your mechanical incidents where people get stuck in machinery. And it's being able to have a skill of resilience to deal with these type of things, because as I said before, you don't know what you're going to go to at any moment in time. And you've got to be able to be that calmness that arrives to the patient. It's no good as a paramedic panicking or being unsure of what you need to do, because that is not going to help the patient overall. And of course, we then have to deal with the more serious and major incidents. So terrorist attacks, train crashes, and the likes of that, which again can have a serious toll on a person's mental health. And so that resilience, that ability not only to communicate with patients, but to communicate with colleagues, talk through what's been happening and learn from things all the time, is absolutely vital as a paramedic. There are always things that we can do differently and better together. And I think it's vital that we all learn on that. But there's a campaign at the moment called Not All Paramedics Wear Green. Clearly, I'm not wearing green. I don't operate as a paramedic on a day-to-day basis responding to 999 calls anymore. But there is the skill sets of being a paramedic are so relevant and transferable to any other area in healthcare or wider. So we've got paramedics that work not only on the 999 service, got paramedics that work in general practice, so with doctors in local surgeries, and in primary care in its entirety, which is part of one of my jobs as a consultant paramedic, is to support paramedics delivering care at patients' homes on behalf of a GP. So it's not 999 calls. It's somebody who's rang the doctor who needs some help and support and advice. It might be a minor injury or minor illness or a long-term condition. So paramedics can go and help with that. They're also now working in accident and emergency departments, so working alongside doctors and nurses in accident and emergency departments and other healthcare professionals, of course. And paramedics are now trained to support on the telephone and virtually with patients. So that's either through the NHS 111 system or through other telephone systems. Sometimes if you call 999, it doesn't mean you're going to get an ambulance. You're absolutely going to get the help that you need, but you might not need an ambulance at that moment in time. And paramedics are on the phone to support people as well. There is some ongoing development as well around the profession. So predominantly, there are 3 to 4 areas that paramedics can develop into. There's the clinical area where you become an advanced or specialist paramedic, working your way up to a consultant paramedic as well. There's the educational route, so from being a lecturer through to being a professor. And with the educational route as well as the research route, which is an emerging theme for paramedics overall of how to become better researchers in the pre-hospital environment. And of course, there's the management route as well, where you can go from being a team leader up to being a director of an ambulance service. But again, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to stay in ambulance services. My career took me from being a paramedic and being an educator to being a manager in the 999 services, to moving in the ambulance service to a non-emergency side of things. So dealing with transportation to and from hospital for patients and the commercial aspect of what ambulance services do. So that could be answering the telephones, dealing with contracts from the NHS to provide other NHS services. I then went into education as an assistant professor before I became an associate dean. So again, the skill sets are transferable into different areas, and obviously now a professor and the head of commissioning for England. All of those fundamental skills of communication, resilience, listening, problem solving are absolutely vital to be a paramedic, but really good skills for other areas of work as well. I'm going to just draw to a close at that point. So if anybody does have any questions, by all means, I'm very willing to answer one, or as many as people have got. But if people do want to find out more about being a paramedic, you can go to the College of Paramedics website or onto the Health Careers website. There's lots of information about how to access courses to become a paramedic and the ongoing development of paramedics as well. But I also just wanted to take this opportunity. Now we're 12 months to the day since the first lockdown because of COVID. And whilst we're here together, I just wanted to send my appreciation to everybody that's worked extremely hard over the past 12 months in what have been certainly the most challenging circumstances in everybody's career and lives. But particularly to those in the NHS and those paramedics and ambulance service staff who have had to work extremely dynamically, responding very fast to change, and having to do something which is not normal overall. And to continue that care for patients has been not only challenging, but extremely productive and successful overall. So a huge thank you to everybody in the NHS, but also to all of those in academia who've supported the development of the healthcare professions. And just a reminder to everybody, at 12 o'clock today, there was a minute's national silence in recognition of the past 12 months for those that have either unfortunately died, but also to think of those who have been working extremely hard overall. So I'm going to pause there and answer any questions that come in. But thank you ever so much again for the opportunity to talk to you all today. I hope there's been bits in there which can help and inspire you for future careers as well. But I'll pause there.
Thank you so much, Adam. For I mean, there's so many thank yous that are coming into the chat function about your time, and thank you very much as well for your thoughts at the end, particularly as we mark on this day of reflection from a year ago today, in terms of the national measures that were put in place for the pandemic. And I think it's very timely that you start with from paramedic, that was one of my questions that I have. But I'm going to start with one of there's a student question in here. It says, this is from Chris Milne. What work experience would you encourage young students of 17 and 18-year-olds to do that is relevant?
I think that's a really good question, Chris. And as I said at the beginning, I started out as a volunteer in the ambulance service as a community first responder. So there are these schemes still about in certain areas. So do have a look at the ambulance service website if that's something that you're interested in. But I also think it's about the transferability of skills. So that understanding of care and compassion, whether that's volunteering in a nursing home, volunteering with a charity like Age UK, it's somewhere that you can develop the skills of communication, develop skills of understanding people, what it means to care for people, I personally think it doesn't matter where you get that type of experience overall. There are other areas such as St John Ambulance, Red Cross Ambulance as well, who can provide volunteering opportunities to support if you want to become a paramedic. But I'd definitely say look at your local area, see if there's any community groups that you can get involved in that support either the elderly or support people potentially with mental health issues or learning difficulties, because that exposure for yourself of different settings, different people, it is so important for development, not only if you want to become a paramedic or in any other healthcare professional. I think it's so important for us in life as well to appreciate diversity, appreciate what inclusivity actually means, and how we interact with people from different cultures, different faiths, and different personal styles, or with different illnesses as well. So have a look around. There's plenty of places that I think you can volunteer and get involved in, and I'd highly recommend volunteering as a starting point on that.
Thanks, Adam. I've actually there's lots of thank yous coming in here. Again, I've got a question around. Obviously, since the pandemic has happened, paramedics have got huge exposure, haven't they? In terms, because they've been the first responders. What can you sort of give us some thoughts about what impact has the pandemic had on in terms of people thinking about going into the profession, or the impact on people within the profession in terms of their own sort of professional development, or how they may see, because it's probably it'll have changed their experience in their career.
Yeah, I think the first bit on the impact of those wanting to go into the profession, I think what, if anything good can come out of something so tragic, I think it's highlighted how important the NHS is to the country, and how important it absolutely is to have the right professionals going to the right patients at the right time. And I know that sounds cliche, but I think it's so true about making sure that regardless if somebody's got COVID or not, that we're able to treat people as effectively and as efficiently as we ever can do. And I think what it's done, it's particularly across healthcare careers in its entirety, is that the pandemic has really driven people to want to come and help, and want to be part of that patient care pathway in any setting. We've seen over the past 12 months, clapping on doorsteps, the appreciation that we have for our healthcare professionals across the country, and not just paramedics. I think paramedics does have a difficulty in attracting new staff and retaining staff as well. So I think the impact in the profession has been quite challenging overall. It's been what some colleagues have described as relentless. It's been non-stop for the ambulance service, and obviously for other parts of the NHS. But I think there's a difference being a paramedic, where you're not in hospital, you're not in that environment of safety, for want of a better word, and you're having to deal with things anywhere whatsoever. It could be outside and it could be pouring with rain, or in the snow, or you could be inside and somebody who's neglected their home as well. So I think there's an aspect which is really important of supporting the well-being of those that want to join, those that are new in the profession and training, but also, just as importantly, supporting all of those from a well-being and mental health perspective who have been paramedics for a long time, but nobody could have ever anticipated this. Nobody knows what the long-term impact on the individuals dealing with it is, from potentially a post-traumatic stress point of view. And I think it's part of the reason why I wanted to become a manager in the ambulance services, was to support the staff at that important time. And it's something which I was very proud to do. Doesn't matter if it was 3 o'clock in the morning or in the middle of a meeting when I went out, and just to be there for the staff to see how they're doing, and to give them that support, that time, that rest and recuperation, which is going to be so needed now post-pandemic. And who knows when it's going to end. There's talks obviously at the moment of wave 3 hitting the UK like it's hitting Europe, and I think we've got to understand better collectively how we support staff going forward, how we give them that time to rest and recover, but also how we give them the education and training to learn of the great things that have happened from such a horrible tragedy, so that we don't lose that innovation flair, we don't lose that new way of working going forward as well. I think it's going to be this is going to be such a long-term thing. We know long-term conditions are going to exacerbate. People haven't been accessing diagnostics as quickly as before. People are identifying cancer at a later stage compared to when it can be dealt with and treated. So we're going to have long-term impacts on people at home, from a pain management point of view, from a mental health point of view, and from a long-term conditions where multi-morbidities and multi-issues with people are now going to be more strife than they ever have before. So
yeah,
I don't think we're out of the dealing with the fire as such for quite a period of time. But I think that's an exciting opportunity for people who want to join and want to help, but also those in the services who can learn and support those that want to join as well. Thanks,
Adam, and that just leads to my final question, because I know we've got to finish in about 2 minutes. There's just a question here, and this links to this actually. You must see a lot of trauma. This is from Alexander. You must see a lot of traumatic things while on the job. How do you manage your mental well-being and health after?
It's a really good question, Alexander. And whenever I do a talk about being a paramedic, usually you get the question like, what's the worst thing you've ever seen? And it's a bit like saying to somebody, tell me your most horrific dream that you never want to repeat again, because that's what sometimes it can be like. And I've dealt with many different things. If you can imagine it, I've probably dealt with it at some point. I think the aspect of mental health and well-being after the event it's a bit of a skill as well, about understanding, and having that confidence in your training that you've done absolutely everything that you can, that there's nothing else you could have done or done differently which would have had a different output or change in the patient at the end. And I think the other important thing is talking, having that downtime to yourself where necessary, talking to colleagues, and just working it through. There was so many different ways. We used to do something called a trauma-related incident management following traumatic events, and that's about giving people the opportunity to debrief and to talk about it at the time, but following up a couple of days later when people have had the chance to think about it as well. There are so many different techniques and mechanisms that you can do. Some people like journaling. Me personally, how did I manage with it? I just talked to colleagues, talked it through. Sometimes you do get a bit of a warped sense of humour with things, and I think sometimes that in the right circumstances that's okay. But I think it's just so important to have that self-awareness and to know when you may not be dealing with it as effectively, and to seek the help that's out there. And when I was a paramedic operationally 13 years ago, there wasn't as much support and advice and help as there is now. And particularly being a paramedic, there is the ambulance services charity who offer a lot of support for well-being and mental health, as well as other charities that support the 999 services and other charities that support the NHS. So I think the key thing is recognising yourself early, seek the help and advice and talk it through with colleagues or talk it through with more senior members of staff as well. I also think it's incumbent, as I said before, on management and leaders to know their staff and to be able to support them as well. So particularly dealing with traumatic jobs in the ambulance service, the manager should be aware of what's going on so that they can go out and help people, and particularly those that are newly qualified as paramedics as well.
Thank you, Adam. I just want to say thank you on behalf of UCB and our staff and students today for coming to join us and sharing such an insightful and a real inspiring presentation. And there's so many thank yous in here. And yeah, we just do want to pass our sincere thanks on to you. It's been brilliant. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you for the invite, and thanks for giving me this opportunity to talk to everybody as well. I wish you all the very best for the rest of the event, and I'll see you soon.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Adam. Bye now. Bye. Okay, thank you. We're now just 1 minute behind, so hopefully we can move forward. And I'd like to welcome our second speaker, who is Matt King, who's CEO of TrustLinks, a local independent charity for mental health and wellbeing in Essex. So welcome, Matt. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Anne. Thank you for the welcome and thank you for the opportunity to come and talk to you. So I've been asked to talk about the voluntary and community sector and employability within the voluntary, community and social enterprise sector. So just tell you a bit about me. So as I say, my name is Matt. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of TrustLinks. So we're a local independent mental health and wellbeing charity, and I'll tell you a bit more about TrustLinks and what we do later. So my background's quite eclectic. My route into working in the voluntary sector was a kind of not a straightforward route. It was quite a interesting route, going through lots of different paths. So my academic background, my first degree was English literature at Liverpool John Moores University, which was a great degree. I think the thing about degrees sometimes is you do them and then you think, well, what next? You know, there's no obvious thing. You could become a teacher, obviously a writer or a copywriter or something like that, but English doesn't necessarily take you to a natural next step for a career path. I took a gap year after that and went to work in a children's home in Argentina. Did a lot of traveling around South America, which was a fantastic experience. Really got me thinking about the world and my place in the world, and supporting people who are more disadvantaged than me. So then I did an international development master's degree at Bath University, which was a fantastic opportunity, and learned a lot about international development, globalization, and the impact of policies and big macroeconomic players and that sort of thing. What I always really then had a passion for is making a difference in people's lives and seeing how I could do that in different ways. So my first bit of my career really was to develop lots of different experiences that built up my experience of working in different places, but also all contributed to making a difference in people's lives. So I trained as a youth worker locally and did a youth work qualification and worked with young people. I've worked in schools and worked in a school for young offenders, which was a really interesting experience. I did some research off the back of my international development masters in Bangladesh around child rights and child labour. Went out to Bangladesh a couple of times and did a big sort of policy review. Then I thought, well, I kind of need a proper job with a proper salary and, you know, something that can help pay the mortgage. So then I applied for the civil service because I thought, you know, that's a good proper job, get a good pension, all of that sort of thing. Went through all of the process to apply for that, and then became a what they called a higher executive officer working at the Lord Chancellor's Department in London in Whitehall. So I thought, well, you know, I've made it. This is very exciting. I didn't really enjoy it, and I didn't enjoy it partly because it was so many layers of bureaucracy. Very hard to see the impact of what you do. I was working on a bit of policy around bailiff law that didn't really interest me at all. And I just thought, you know, I'm becoming part of a big machine. I'm being eaten up by this big machine. So I left that after 7 months. Went and worked in the school with young sex offenders. And then fairly quickly I had my CV out with some agencies. And one of the agencies got in touch and said, would you like to come and interview for a role in local government, and I'd never thought about local government at all before as a sort of career path, but I got a role in a drug and alcohol action team, commissioning charities and health services to deliver better outcomes for people in terms of education, health and recovery for drug and alcohol services. Did that for a few years in London, and then got a role at Essex County Council doing children's services, kind of linking in my different experiences with children's homes and youth work. And then I moved on to working in the voluntary sector. The reason I moved into the voluntary sector was that I felt I could make a real difference, and I could have a real link to the impact of what we're doing and to the values and the vision of the voluntary sector. So I got a role within UNICEF UK, which is a part of a big international charity, as a programme director. And then I got my current job off the back of that, really, as chief exec of a local mental health charity. So I've also volunteered in small and local national charities as a trustee, and also volunteered locally to deliver some services. So kind of getting a whole range of different experiences has enabled me to be in the role that I'm in now. In addition to this sort of academic background, I've done further study, and I think in the voluntary sector there's a lot of opportunities to carry on learning. So I did a level 5 in leadership and management. I've done a foundation degree in charity and social enterprise management. I've done facilitation in action learning, mentoring, and those sorts of roles. So I think that sort of lifelong learning, I think when you're doing your degree and you finish your degree, you think, well, I've done all my learning, I've done all my assignments, but really it doesn't stop there. And because things change so much, you kind of need to continue to learn and evolve and develop. Certainly, you know, and we've seen it over the last year, digital skills have been a massive change in the way that everybody works, and we all have to up our digital game, and I think a lot of people have done that. So as I say, it's sort of a continuing lifelong learning. So what is the voluntary and community and social enterprise sector? It's a massive sector, and I think one that doesn't get talked about as much as the private sector or the NHS or government. It's kind of, yeah, it's also known as the third sector. It's the sort of the bits on the fringes that a lot of people don't necessarily think that much about, but is very big and very broad. So there are registered charities, there's registered community interest companies, which are companies that do social good and help to achieve impact for people, but they are ostensibly a company that's delivering services that they sell. There's community groups that aren't registered as charities, and then there's social enterprises, which are businesses, companies, but they are working for a social good rather than for private profit. Cooperatives also come under this banner, so the co-op and the cooperative bank and that sort of thing have a slightly different structure for employment, so people are members of the company rather than employees. So there's lots of different forms of the voluntary and community and social enterprise sector. The income of the sector is estimated at 73 billion in 2016, so that will have gone up since then. There's actually 488,000 charities and social enterprises in the UK, and 44 super major charities, so income over 100 million. So the sorts of organisations that you'll have heard of, such as Cancer Research, Oxfam, Save the Children, those sorts of big charities. And I worked at UNICEF, whose turnover was over 100 million. Yeah, they're kind of massive businesses, massive organisations with lots of people doing lots of different things. But the vast majority of charities are small. Vast majority are under £10,000 turnover a year. Don't necessarily have any employees. They'll be volunteer run and led, and volunteers will do all of the work. My organisation is classed now as a large charity with just over £1 million turnover. But yeah, there's anything in between, really. So the types of activities that charities do range massively. So I've kind of just grouped these into the broad sorts of things that charities do. So one is the service provider, so meeting identified need. So the important thing about charities is that they are delivering something complementary or different to the NHS, local government, social care. They may well be commissioned, so funded by NHS or local authority or even a government department to deliver a particular thing. So, for example, TrustLinks, my charity, we're commissioned by the NHS to deliver particular services. We deliver a recovery college for people with mental health problems. We deliver a wellbeing hub, and these are both commissioned and funded by the NHS. We also deliver support to carers, unpaid carers in our local area. So we get funding from local government to deliver counselling and peer support groups and other support groups for unpaid carers. They also deliver services that aren't commissioned. So it's things that people have identified at a local level or even a national level that they want to address a particular need. So often charities are founded by somebody that's had a personal impact on them or somebody within their lives. So I've worked with a charity that works with families affected by drug and alcohol use. So a lady whose son died of drug addiction, an overdose, she set up the charity to respond to the needs that she'd identified for herself, which was very much about getting support for that trauma of having a drug and alcohol son with addiction and dying through that, and then for other families that she supported and worked with, so that she knows that there is that need and she can respond to that need. So it's about meeting identified community needs and responding to particular areas that they think that the NHS or social care or other services aren't already meeting. Community development's another key function, so working with the communities to improve wellbeing and outcomes at a local level or indeed a national level. A lot of charities also do research, and they could be funded, like cancer research is one of the largest charities in the country, funding from a huge range of different sources and actually pioneering in terms of science and health outcomes. Enterprise for social good, I've already mentioned social enterprises, so that could be, there's one in London that does, they have coffee stalls around sort of stations in London, and they actually employ ex-offenders or people who've formerly been living rough, homeless people, and they find employment and enterprise for that, but it's achieving those social outcomes. Advocacy and campaigning is another key function of charities trying to change a particular bit of the world, trying to change policy, campaigning around things like climate change or animal rights or human rights or children's rights, and trying to push different agendas. Fundraising is another key bit of activity within a charity. Obviously charities need money to keep going, so we need to make sure that there is the funds coming in, and some charities, their whole job is about raising funds to send it abroad, for example, or to support things. And then grant giving is another kind of key function. So there are philanthropic charities where they've either accumulated money over many years, or a philanthropist has given a big chunk of their wealth, and then that's about giving that out to other charities and individuals to improve outcomes and achieve the social aims. So as you'd guess from the range of things that charities do, there's a huge range of roles, jobs within the voluntary community and social enterprise sector. So I was just kind of thinking about the different jobs in the places that I've worked and the places that I've worked with, and sort of grouping those into broader areas. So delivering and managing services is an obvious first one. So things like working in the health, social care, education, community development. Charities span arts and culture as well, or sports. The heritage sector, so museums and heritage type of organisations. Environmental conservation, so working with National Trust is a very big national charity. English Heritage, another one. working to conserve places of places of our environment. And I've also mentioned international development. So there's lots of roles within those, lots of sort of frontline roles to deliver those services, to work in those sorts of fields for those people that are qualified or specialists in those areas or interested in those areas. Then there's what's more of the sort of bureaucracy, the more of the behind the scenes type of roles. So it might be grant making, giving out money to other charities, might be in managing all of the contracts, managing the negotiation with the NHS or the local authority. Business development is a big one, so there's quite a few roles of people who are literally seeking out the opportunities for funding, for contracts, for partnerships, for enterprises. So that's, for those that are more entrepreneurial, quite a nice role. We talked earlier about policy and campaigning, research, evaluation, so more of the sort of academic side of working in the voluntary and community sector. So people who are lobbying Parliament, lobbying politicians, maybe also trying to influence big business, or work in partnership with big business, which kind of leads on to fundraising. There's a huge career path. There's the Institute of Fundraising. There's a lot of people do fundraising as a profession. So that could be trying to work with trusts and foundations to get money off them, encouraging people to donate, £5–10 a month. And there's a huge industry around that. Working with major donors, so sort of people who are wealthy and trying to get donations from them. One of the biggest incomes for charities is legacies, actually. So when people pass away, if they don't have family to leave it to, or even if they do have family and they choose to give it to a charity, and that's how particularly animal charities do incredibly well, because people leave, if they leave their house that's worth £500,000, then that's a massive one-off benefit payment for the charity. Also working with corporate partners, so working with banks or businesses or that sort of thing to get their money to resource and support the charities. In addition to this, marketing, communications, that's a very big part of it. I mentioned digital earlier. I think particularly digital is a really massive part of charity delivery now and charity engagement. And then there's all the very behind the scenes stuff of which all organisations have to have. So IT, finance, HR, data management, digital, all of those roles that are maybe not as sort of frontline or front facing, but are still really important to have in an organisation. If your IT isn't working, as you'll know, everything stops functioning. So you need really good professionals working to support the delivery of charities and the charitable aims. Management and leadership, finally. So obviously these things need to be managed well. Actually, there is a lack of good people working in the management and leadership of the voluntary sector. And when I put a role out, if I advertise a role, if it's sort of frontline worker, I'll get 100 or so applicants. If I put a sort of manager, I'll be lucky if I get 5 applicants and lucky if 1 or 2 of them are good. Wrapping up. So ways to get into the sector. This is my final slide, I think. As your previous speaker said, I think volunteering is an absolute key. So if you can get an opportunity to volunteer, if you've got the time to volunteer in a charity, either delivering frontline services, working in their back office, or the other one I'd recommend is becoming a trustee. And you can become a trustee, you become the legal accountable person within an organisation working with a group of trustees. And you get a huge experience of sort of strategic management, get an opportunity to do a bit of operational management depending on the size of the charity. And also there's lots of opportunities to work both at an entry level and work your way up, or you could do a particular subject specific role qualification and then work in that way. So I think this is my final slide. Just about TrustLinks. So we've got £1 million turnover. when I started 9 years ago, I think we had £100,000 turnover. So we've grown massively in the last few years. I've talked about the contracts. We've got about 20 different charitable trusts that give us grants. We do community fundraising as well. Altogether now we've got about 50 staff. Many of them are part-time. I think voluntary sector give quite a lot of flexibility in terms of employment. I haven't put it on the slide, but the pay is not as good as the NHS, social care, the private sector generally. But what you do get is that reward that you're doing something of social good. You're making a change. You often work in areas that you feel passionate about yourself. So you get that connection with what you do. And often there is that flexibility. There is that sort of two-way thing that, for those that are maybe not wanting a very rigid employment structure, there's a really nice opportunity to do that. So we recruit staff through local community voluntary sector, local CVS. We advertise on Indeed, word of mouth, on our website, that sort of thing. So kind of just connect with the charities where you are and find out about it. And we really find that we need to grow staff as well. So we often start staff on placements, volunteering opportunities, sessional to permanent staff. As I said, sometimes you advertise a role and it's quite hard when you get that. You get people in, and I think I've done my last slide. So there you go. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Matt. Apologies, I did not want to rush you. I want to allow some time for students and staff to ask questions before the next speaker. But that was really great, absolutely brilliant, really detailed. And I think especially for a lot of our students that are here, either from the nursing background, health and social care, all these areas, youth, community and families, I'm sure they'll be very happy to ask questions, especially in the mental health area as well, because that is quite a big, I would say, like an area or a topic right now, isn't it, within, within the community right now. So, I mean, we already have a few questions here. So my colleague Chris just asked a question. Sorry if I just scroll a bit up. A student starting out looking at a voluntary sector, what entry roles would be good, to start to build up their skill set?
Yeah, it's a great question, Chris. So I think a lot of charities have frontline support worker roles. You don't have to have a particular qualification. What you do need to demonstrate is some empathy with that client group and some experience of working with that client group. I mean, we have recruited people who've had that personal experience. Maybe they've cared for somebody with a mental health issue, or maybe they've had a mental health issue themselves. And that lived experience of mental health can be a really important asset. So, I would look out for support worker roles. They're normally just above minimum wage, so not particularly well paid, but it gives you that really great grounding and experience. We've certainly recruited a few graduates through that and given them that opportunity.
Thank you, Matt. We do have another question. Hope that answered your question, Chris, actually. Hope that was okay. We have another question from a student. Hi, Matt. I'm trying to get into a role as a mental health practitioner. Would your company be able to offer anything like this?
Well, we're in Essex. So if you can come down to Essex, Sabia, that would be wonderful. We'd certainly, actually, we have got some volunteering opportunities, which you could all do. So we've got a befriending scheme called Talking Together. You get mental health first aid training, you get other training, you get supervision. And because it's all on the telephone, actually you could be based anywhere to do this volunteering. So if you look at TrustLinks.org, get in touch with us. That will give you a really good first step on that experience, on that ladder. And we have actually recruited somebody off the back of their volunteering already. But yeah, as I say, any experience that you could get, any opportunity to do volunteering, that really gives you that opportunity to get your first foot in the door with an interview. Please look us up.
Great, thank you, Matt. No, that's absolutely fine. Surveys is fantastic. So I am assuming that she's very interested in the volunteering opportunity that you just mentioned. We actually have another question by another student. Is there any type of route you can recommend for nursing abroad in volunteering work, or a certain type of volunteering experience in specific? As obviously she's kind of aware of many ways volunteering in general, but is there anything you could recommend nursing abroad, maybe?
So there are charities that do placements abroad. My gap year was actually with USPG, so a Christian mission organisation, and I know USPG and CMS, they both do opportunities for placements abroad. It wouldn't necessarily be for nursing. There is VSO, which is voluntary service overseas. I'm not completely up to speed on how they're running now, but if you look them up, there would be opportunities to get placements overseas. There are some really great charities. There's one called Mercy Ships, actually, which take people who are qualified medics, and they go on a ship and they go around the world responding to the health needs of people. So I would definitely say look up the bigger charities, the international development charities, volunteering. Something like Mercy Ships would be such an amazing opportunity, particularly if you're a qualified nurse, to get that experience. And yeah, I would say that sort of gap year or opportunity would be absolutely invaluable to your confidence, your self-esteem, your career path, because yeah, if you can demonstrate that you've got that interest, that passion, you've experienced more challenging volunteering opportunities, then that would set you in great stead in the future.
Thank you, Matt. Can I just double check? Was that nursing ships or Mercy Ships?
Mercy, MERCY ships.
Right, okay, guys, that's Mercy Ships. So I just put Mercy Ships, so that was incorrect anyway. So no, thank you very much for that. We do have, I believe, another question. So fantastic, Sally. Really interesting volunteering opportunities. Right, we've got another question by student Ahmed. Hi, Matt. How can we get in touch with yourself personally for advice for someone who has recently started a CIC? I'm not sure what CIC stands for.
CIC is a community interest company, so it's a type of charitable organisation. I've put my email in the chat, so you're very welcome to email me. I'll endeavour to get back to you, but thank you for your interest.
Brilliant, thank you. Ahmed, you can take note as well as other students. Chris Milne, thank you for sharing the Prospects website. There you are. That's it. I think that's all the questions. But thank you so much for your time. And if it's okay with you, I'm more than if I could share this presentation afterwards. Once the conference is finished today, that'd be great.
Very welcome to.
If that's okay with you. But thank you very much, Matt. Thank you for your time.
Pleasure. Lovely to see you all.
You too.
Okay, thank you. So we now move on to our third presentation of the morning, and it's a real pleasure that I'm introducing Anna Skeats this morning. And Anna Skeats and I are very good friends from, as I said earlier, from a long time ago. And it's just an absolute joy that she's been able to find time from a very busy schedule of CEO of the Mason Foundation to join us today. So and I really do want to give you a very warm welcome to UCB this morning, Anna, and thank you so much for coming. I'm so excited to hear your presentation. And so I can just briefly introduce you. So Anna is CEO of the Mason Foundation, began her career as a public health nutritionist, where she was responsible for developing, implementing and leading various community-based programs. She soon advanced to senior leadership roles, overseeing various community health and wellbeing projects and initiatives both in the NHS and for a national social enterprise. So a very warm welcome, Anna. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can.
Fantastic. Well, lovely to hear you all today. Thank you for inviting me to come to talk to you about my career journey. So I thought I'd start by just giving you a little bit of background about me. So I'm originally from Essex, and my parents were I came from a very loving family. I had a bus driver as a father, and a childminder mother, both very caring, but didn't go to university, so non-educated route, but incredibly hard-working, work ethic from my childhood. I grew up in a seaside town of Southend-on-Sea in Essex, and I'm, as Anne said, now the CEO of the Mason Foundation, a charity which I'm going to tell you a little bit more about shortly. So if I just move on to the next slide, bear with me. So the reason why I felt it was important to give you that context about who I am, I think it's really important because it's who I became as my adult self. So the key things that I learned from my parents were that real drive and work ethic to really give your 100%. They were both very caring individuals, my parents, and taught me to work hard. And through childhood, I always had an aspiration to help others, but also to be financially secure. So growing up, my parents didn't have much money. I have quite early childhood memories of my family struggling financially. I think that gave me a real drive from an early age that I wanted to have a career whereby I could afford nice things and have a good, comfortable life, but also have that real satisfaction of knowing that I'm helping others. Through my childhood, I was heavily into sport, physical activity, and that also grew an interest in the wellness and health and wellbeing industry. And I had a real aspiration through childhood to give back and support people through health and wellbeing. And I wanted to go on to become a teacher. So in my sixth form days, I used to support a local primary school, helped out as a teaching assistant. And then when I left school, I went on to university and I wanted a new start. So I decided to go to Liverpool to pursue my early teacher training career. And when I arrived at Liverpool and started doing teacher training, I realised that actually by doing a 4-year degree solely in education, that could potentially limit my options. So although I didn't change in terms of those aspirations to become a teacher, I felt if I were to do a BSc degree and then do a PGC afterwards, I had more options ahead of me, really. So I didn't want to narrow that. So just bear with me. And then, so what I decided to do was switch degrees to do a health degree with sport. So I still had my passion there. And as I progressed within my undergraduate, I started to realise there was more opportunities outside of education. Obviously, education is what I'd known for my whole childhood. But I started to see that there was more ways that I could help others. I also started to develop a real passion for supporting people from disadvantaged communities. I saw that there was real inequality in society, and I learned that through my degree, and I started to see that just in the community. Obviously, going to university in Liverpool, I actually lived in some quite disadvantaged communities, really, and started to see maybe this is somewhere where I could really make a difference and help people that perhaps don't have the access to the support services that others that are more financially secure have. So after completing my 3-year degree, I decided then that I really wanted to specialise. I wanted to specialise in nutrition, but I didn't want to work in a clinical setting. So I started to see the value of community health and wellbeing. So I decided to pursue an MSc degree in public health nutrition. And that was very much focused around community. So after that 1 year, well, during that 1 year MSc, I started to explore what job opportunities were about. And it was actually 6 months into my master's that I saw this job that cropped up. It was in a place called Dudley. I'm not too far away from you guys, so I'm sure you know where Dudley is. But when I was studying in Chester at the time, I didn't know where Dudley was. I thought because I'd seen it on the university notice board that actually it must be fairly close in the northwest. So I thought I'll apply for this job. And the job was a community nutritionist. I think they actually called the job Food for Health Advisor. I thought that sounds interesting. I'll give that a go. Gain a bit of experience of applying for a job. It was the first one that I'd applied for. And to my surprise, I got an interview. So I thought, well, that's great. I've been given this opportunity. I should definitely go along and see what it's all about. And hopefully it'll be a great learning experience. At this point, I was only 6 months into my master's, so I hadn't completed it. And I went along for my day trip to Dudley, found out that it actually wasn't close to Chester at all. It was quite a long way away. But nonetheless, fantastic experience. And I was asked lots of questions around why I'd applied, the community side of health and wellbeing. And at the time, I was starting to see the what was termed and what is still termed as the obesogenic environment. And I felt I had a real passion for supporting communities to really overcome these issues of fast food, poor health, and a lack of opportunities. And to my surprise, half an hour after having my interview for Dudley, I received a phone call to say that I'd been offered the job. So that for me was quite a significant turning point. Firstly, I hadn't at that point finished my master's. Secondly, the job was in Dudley, which I didn't know anybody, I didn't know the area. And I explained to them that I was still studying and that I still had almost 6 months of my master's to complete. And the recruiting manager said that they were happy to wait for me, that I could start as soon as I'd finished my taught part of my studies and I could complete my dissertation part through remote learning if I were to relocate to Dudley. So for me, this was a huge opportunity. It was something that whilst I was incredibly nervous about, I couldn't turn it down. It was, as I said, that turning point for me. So the summer of that year, I decided to pack my suitcases and went to relocate to Dudley and started my career working for public health within the NHS. And I loved the job. I literally didn't turn back. I learned so much about hands-on community health and well-being. So within those first few years, I don't know if you're aware of the big national government 5 a day campaign that was launched in the early 2000s. There was a lot of government funding at the time. So at the time I managed an NHS community cafe. I used to do, it was a time of Jamie Oliver's crusades to support healthy school dinners. And as part of my role, I used to go to schools and support the school catering departments with healthy meals. And I ran various other health and wellbeing community-based initiatives. And I really got this passion for helping people at a community level. I started to understand what it was all about and the importance of listening, understanding, and really being within the heart of the community to build that trust and really empower local people and show them that you're one of them. You want to help them, but in a way that works for them. And how I did this back in Dudley, I actually based myself within the community cafe that I was managing. And I got to know the local people. I talked to the local people. I understood some of their challenges and barriers. And for me, this was a really fundamental part of my career journey. And I think it was probably one of my biggest learning points, because being so close to the local community like this really gave me so many skills to understand some of those real challenges that real communities with such severe levels of deprivation are coming up against. Through uni, we talked about dietetics and consultation services and the support services that the NHS offers. And so often people don't get on well with services like that, where they're face-to-face and they see that they're a very formal setting. By having that community-based cafe, really local approach, people trusted and wanted to talk to you and really embrace the support you were giving them. So I spent several years, I think 3 years in Dudley, and neighbouring, you're again very close to home for you Birmingham students, you'll know Sandwell. So Sandwell is even more deprived as a borough than Dudley. It had some real challenges, and I knew a number of people that worked in Sandwell. And they talked to me about some of the challenges of the projects they were delivering. And it sounded really exciting in terms of the opportunities to, again, help support those projects and really make a difference at that community level. So I decided to apply for a job in Sandwell. And this was a more of a management role, overseeing the weight management services within Sandwell. And we delivered a number of community-based weight management services, including a Slimwell programme, which was very much community-based. So it was a 12-week programme where we supported people to overcome their own personal barriers. There was a number of other programmes that I supported, very much at, again, that community level. And then several years into my work within Sandwell NHS, I don't know if you guys will remember, there was the split between the commissioner and providers within the NHS, and the NHS services essentially went out to tender. So the local council, so public health, then moved over to the local council, and they were they were commissioning services. So at that point, we were tendered, all the services that we delivered were tendered by a company called My Time Active. So myself and my whole team took it over to this company. And at the time, there was quite a lot of controversy really as to how those services would work. There was concern that they were being privatised and they wouldn't be the same. It wasn't the NHS anymore. But I can honestly say when we moved over to My Time Active, there were some real positives that came of that. Because what happened was we very much learn about the importance of commercialism. So the importance of making those services effective and commercially viable. So it was about taking a service, but really holding ourselves to account in terms of spreading those across wider areas and being able to deliver real value for money. And through my time at My Time Active, I progressed in a number of roles. And I eventually took on a role of head of business development because of my skills in commercialism. So I learned a hell of a lot. Just move to my next slide. So that spanned a significant part of my career journey, 15 years. So as I said, I talked in detail about that community wellbeing, the delivery side, the management side, and then the business development. So I suppose not really it was probably by default, I ended up in business development. And that was because I had a skill for understanding business development and how to respond to tenders. But what happened within my journey at My Time Active, because we were more than just a wellbeing provider, we also oversaw leisure centres and golf centres. My role became much more diverse. And I started to move away from what was really core to me. If you remember back in the early part of my presentation, it was around health, community, local people, really making a difference. And because my role had now expanded to be commercialism, golf, wellbeing, lack of wellbeing and more around the golf and the leisure, I started to feel that I needed a changing direction. And during this time, I actually had my third child, and I went on maternity leave. And when I returned to work after having my third child, I was actually made redundant, and I was asked to essentially decommission my whole team. So the organisation had made a decision that because of the current climate at the time, which was 3 years ago, with the squeezes to local government and the lack of funding, that business development was not something the company wanted to focus on anymore. They really wanted to consolidate their existing services. And so that left me with a crossroads. It forced my hand, but in a really positive way, because I then reflected at this point as to what do I actually want? Go back to the Anna at the early part of of my career. How was I going to make a difference now, and use the skills that I'd learned through my commercialism, through my business development, to really make a difference? And I explored various opportunities at the time. So I was pursuing 4 significant opportunities. So one was an operations director of a small charity. One was primary care manager within the NHS. One was, again, back in the NHS around NHS transformation. And one was a community-based role within West Mercia Police, a civilian position, management position. And at this point, another significant turning point in my career. So I was exploring those 4 opportunities, and whilst working my notice period within my time active, I made a number of calls to partners that I've worked with over my career, just to let them know that I was moving on, but that I'd love to stay in touch. And I think this is a really important point in terms of your partnerships and the importance of collaboration and respecting those partnerships. So I made a call to a guy called Ben, who I'd worked with for many, many years. So Ben was managing director of another company called Wellbeing People. And we'd commissioned Wellbeing People within my time active a number of times. And Ben spoke to me about a guy that he had met, an entrepreneur who had recently started this thing called the Mason Mile. And we was chatting about it, and he said, would I be interested to have a chat with this guy, Stephen? Because there might be some opportunities that I'm interested in. And this was really significant for me, because within 24 hours later, I was having an interview with Stephen about potentially taking on the CEO role within the Mason Foundation, a charity that he was about to start. And essentially, Stephen had got a concept of something called the Mason Mile. So the Mason Mile is very, very similar concept to Park Run, but the Mason Mile is about being that starting point for physical activity. So something that Stephen felt very strongly about. He wanted to build something that was for everybody, for people with disabilities, people from low income, people that wouldn't be able to take part in structured physical activity. And he, at this point, when I spoke to Stephen, had got this concept, he'd got this idea, but that was as far as it went. He'd started to build a foundation, but no staff, no nothing really, just a concept. And basically, Stephen said to me at this point, he said, I'd love you to come and join me and to build the charity with me. And essentially gave me 24 hours notice to decide whether I wanted to go down the structured route of those potential 4 opportunities that I was exploring, or join Stephen to build the foundation. And I'm delighted to say there was something there with Stephen and his mission that I was really bought into. And I decided to take that leap of faith and join Stephen. And 18 months later, I absolutely haven't looked back. I've enjoyed every moment of it. So Stephen founded the Mason Foundation back in 2017. And he was successful to secure Sport England funding in 2018 to basically pilot the Mason Foundation. Sorry, the Mason Mile within Kent. Since I started and joined the team, I've taken that across the southeast. So we've rolled out the Mason Mile across 6 localities within Kent and London. And we're currently pursuing funding to roll out into our 3rd stage, which is national rollout across 3 regions, so southeast, the Midlands and the northwest. We essentially, how it works is we go into local areas and we work at community level to empower, support and nurture local ambassadors to take on the Mason Mile and set up and deliver those within their own local communities. And really what's at the heart of it is people and understanding the local area and the local challenges. So there's three main things that for me have really been so important to me throughout my career. And they are ensuring that you stand out, that you follow your heart and you value your connections. And that these are the three take homes today that I really would, if I can give you three things to remember from my presentation, it's these three things. So stand out. So I've recruited many people over my 15, 20-year career journey. And the amount of times we have applicants, hundreds of applicants that we're spoilt for choice. And when we're reading through CVs and applications, it's really important that you ensure you stand out. It's such a competitive place. And I think back to an individual, a young lady called Robin that I knew. I was introduced to by my good friend Anne, who was a student at Coventry University at the time. Now, this was about 5 years ago now, 5 or 6 years ago. And Anne said that Robin was interested in wellbeing and community health, and that she'd love to have a chat with me and perhaps gain some work experience. So I gave Robin a call and subsequently invited her to come up and see me in Sandwell at the time. And Robin was studying in Coventry. So she booked a meeting and came along. And when she popped into the office, it became apparent to me that it wasn't a 45-minute drive that she'd taken from Coventry over to Sandwell. She'd actually gone back home to London and had travelled 3 hours up the motorway to come and see me for a half-an-hour meeting about my time active and the work I delivered there. And I was mortified because I literally thought she was taking a short drive. But I think the point I'm making here is Robin was really absolutely prepared to travel those 3 hours to come and have a half-an-hour conversation with me, which subsequently led to her being introduced to our London team within my time active. She started to do some volunteering for them, and within several weeks had gained herself full-time employment. And 5 years later, is an absolute shining star for the company. She won a Be More Hero award a couple of years ago for outstanding services. And I wanted to share with you that story because for me, that's a real example of standing out and making sure that you're counted. And whilst I was mortified at the time that she'd taken that long journey up to see me in Sandwell, I think it's fair to say that paid off. And it's a great example of someone putting themselves out but gaining a great opportunity, which led to great things for her. Second point to take away, follow your heart. As you've seen from my journey, my high points of my career were absolutely where I was helping people. People were at the heart of the service that I was delivering, and I was incredibly passionate about what I do. And I can honestly say the Mason Mile, the work I do now for Stephen and the Mason Foundation is absolutely on the point really for me, for my passion for giving back to communities, and that's what makes me happy. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning with a smile on my face. And I think it's so important that you are driven by what makes you happy. And the third and final, most important point, valuing those connections. If you think back to the story where I spoke to Ben, random call led to an introduction to Stephen, led to 24 hours later a job offer for the dream job for me. You never know when those connections are going to be really useful and valuable. So throughout your career, ensure you do value those connections, keep them close. And we all work in small networks. So you never know when you helping someone or them helping you can actually make a huge difference to you in your career. So thank you very much for listening. That's all for me today. So if anyone's got any questions, I'd be more than happy to help.
Anna, I just want to go, wow, that was just amazing. You cannot believe the comments that are coming in here in terms of Helen Waters, who worked with you in Samwell developing weight management programs, how much she's learned and how the skills she's used and gained in her teaching, the skills she used and how she's put them into her teaching career. Great example of your networks to find work and opportunities. Amara, this is amazing and just shows that opportunities are endless. Mike, great advice, very inspirational. Amazing work, Anna from Farah. Chris, really great story about Robin and showing you have the guts to follow your heart. Thanks. Shows having a passion and being willing to take a risk can make a real difference to your journey. Really great story. Thank you for the time to speak to us. Just so many thank you, inspiring, very inspirational. So considering it's called Inspiring Futures, Inspiring Careers, Annie, and it's just such a pleasure because I've known you, we've known each other for so long. But to me, I mean, I was going to sort of ask you at the end, there isn't any questions that are coming up because I think everybody is like, they've taken it all on. Sabbath's got a question here. Anna, do you have any projects taking place in the Midlands area?
That's a very good question. It was the one point that I forgot to mention. We have plans to roll out across the Midlands. So we're in discussions at the moment with Sport England and various other match funders. And we are very hopeful that throughout the later part of summer, so from September next year, that we'll be able to roll out across the Midlands. So we will be looking to appoint a regional manager and we'll be seeking local partners, so of which I would love BCP to be one of those. So any students, any people wanting to get involved, my email's on the slide. I'll be looking for ambassadors. We will be looking for local delivery partners. We will be looking for people to just get involved and enjoy taking part in the Mason Mile. So yes is the answer to that one.
And well, that answers Sabbath's next question. Was this can students volunteer with your charity? And this sounds very positive. We'd love to get in touch on behalf of our students. So I think you can, and I know that I've already been in discussions with you about the Mason Business Mile as well. So for the university. So and it's been great to have you here to talk to listen about the Mason Foundation and the Mason Mile today. But I think Anna as well. I just wanted to say how brilliantly you mapped out your career path, because career journeys, I think, because we've got students on here that can be 16, 17, 18, or 19, older, sort of different ages, that we don't always know what our career is going to be like. We might have an idea, but actually it was lovely the way, and I'm actually going to tweet some of your slides, and I know I think, will Sabbath have your presentation? Yeah, thank you, because I think it was really good to say we don't always know what we might start off with something, but I do think that those 3 points about the end about doing something that it's following your heart, making sure that it's something that you love doing, and because then you've had that, you followed that passion and those values that were true to you, and they've stayed with you, and you've taken it in different opportunities, and I think that's something that we can all learn from. And I'm going to finish it by Joe Smith. Thank you, Anna. A great inspirational career journey.
Thank you very much, everyone. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. All the best with everything.
Lovely to speak with you. Thank you, Anna, again.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Anna. Thank you. Bye.
I think we now have a break, Sabbath, don't we, for 15 minutes?
Yep. So obviously, firstly, thank you for all our speakers this morning, and thank you for the students for staying and staff who have been listening in. We will have a quick break now, I would say around 10 minutes or so. So please don't log out the conference and log back in. If you could just stay online and just kind of mute yourself, or just stay how you are. Just kind of grab yourself a quick tea, coffee, snack, whatever you wish to, and we will be joined by our final two fantastic speakers, one from the NSPCC and one from Brays. I believe it's like a special needs school. So we've got two more fantastic speakers. And just a polite reminder, at 12 o'clock, we will also be having our 1 minute silent as well. So yeah, don't go anywhere, guys. Please stay online, but just grab yourself tea, coffee, or anything that you wish to have. Thank you.
Particularly over the last few years or so, that's been happening with a lot more frequency, young people coming through to talk to us about feeling suicidal. We do provide, as I mentioned earlier, a 24-hour service, and that's divided up across 12 bases. So the most local one for us would be the Birmingham base. We're situated on the Hagley Road, not very far from Five Ways. But then there's 11 other bases across the country. We've got a couple in Wales, some in Northern Ireland, Scotland, but most are in England, the biggest one being in London. And altogether, there's around 1,400 volunteer counsellors across all of those bases, and about 50 staff counsellors as well. As not everyone wants to, volunteer their time at 4 in the morning. So occasionally we do need to get some staff counsellors in to support at those kind of difficult to find volunteer times. Out of the kind of 250,000 contacts that we take in a year, around 5,000 of those will be what we call referrals, and that's where we will pass information on to another agency. So, for example, a young person might want a crime reported to the police on their behalf, and they might just be a bit scared to do that themselves, which is absolutely fine. We'll happily make that initial phone call for them, or potentially they might want something reported to social services or a school or something similar to that. And we understand that, having that first conversation about it, be it, mental health, abuse, anything along those lines can be really tricky. So we're more than happy to have that first initial conversation to support those young people. We do find that it's mainly girls that contact us. About 65% of all of our contacts are from female callers, and around 15% are from male callers. Now, if you're good at maths, you notice that that's not adding up anywhere near to 100%. Around 20% of everyone that calls us remains anonymous, in the sense that we don't know their age necessarily, we don't know their gender, we might not even know their name, or they might use a fake name because it's easier to talk that way. And we do find that at the moment, it's the under 11 age group, that's the 11 and under, I should say, sorry, age group, that's the most common that comes through to us. About 45% of all of our contacts come from primary school age children, around 30 from secondary school age, and around another 10% from 16 to 18 years old. That's the main kind of numbers on how we work at Childline. And as was mentioned in my introduction, I am a team manager at Childline. So what that means is basically in all of the 12 bases, there's a number of team managers, supervisors, and counsellors. So as team managers, it's our job to manage those supervisors, make sure they're getting all the right training, make sure their practice is up to standard, and then those supervisors will support the counsellors in the counselling room. They will assess any risk that comes through, and support with anything, as I'm sure you can imagine. Some of the stuff that we hear at Childline can be quite emotionally charged, and they're there to support with the that kind of emotional fallout that can happen after a call. It doesn't happen particularly often, but when it does, it's great to have that support there. So that's generally how we work. We do obviously lots of internal audits and meetings and things along those lines to make sure that our practice is as good as it can be, and make sure we're supporting children and young people as best we can, and to also make sure that everything's being updated. I started myself volunteering at Childline a little over 10 years ago now, and the world was a very different place. The internet was obviously around 10 years ago, but it wasn't quite as ingrained in society. Not everyone had Facebook and Instagram and all of the other social media networks. So we have to evolve and we have to change our training. So that's part of what we do, is to make sure we're as up to date and current as we can be, to make sure our volunteers are as informed as they can be as well. And to make sure that we're delivering that quality service as best we can. So essentially, yeah, it's a management role that I have at Childline. There's about 24 of us nationally that manage all the different supervisors, all the different shifts across the whole country, every day of the week. And we have to communicate with each other quite regularly, make sure that we're all doing as best we can to make sure everyone's as informed of everything as they need to be. And that could be letting other people know about a particularly vulnerable caller that's been coming through to us. We'll have a bit of an overview of that. So as I mentioned, I got into this role. I started as a volunteer. I previously, I kind of say in another life, when I was at university, I studied chemistry and then went on to work in a secondary school after that. Decided to get involved with Childline because I did a sponsored walk. It used to be something that we do every year called the Hack, which was the hike against child cruelty. And I stayed on the NSPCC mailing list after that, and had an email one day, would you be interested with volunteering at Childline? And I thought, why not? We've got nothing to lose. Could be a good experience. So I went along to a volunteer information evening, and then after that, after you've kind of sat through that meeting, you would get given an application form. Back then it was a paper one. However, now it's all done online. And then I applied, was interviewed, and then went through training. And for about 5 years, I volunteered. Monday evenings would be my regular shift. I would do around 6 p.m. till 11 p.m. pretty much every Monday. And that's what we ask of all of our volunteers is once they've completed their training, obviously people are allowed to be ill, people are allowed to go on holiday, things like that do get in the way. But the general expectation is that if you're well, we're expecting you in once a week for around 4 hours. So I did that pretty much week in, week out for about 5 years. And then I realised that I was actually enjoying my voluntary work a lot more than my actual work in the secondary school. So decided to apply for a supervisor position when one came up. Over that time, I'd kind of self-funded my own counselling course, not with any kind of career aspiration in mind to do that, just more that I found it really interesting, the whole counselling field. Having come from quite a sciencey background, talking about feelings all day was not something I was expecting to do, but found I really.
Hi, Matt. Sorry to disturb you. I think we've lost audio. It could be your earphones. We can't hear you. Could it be your headphones, possibly? If you try to talk now. Your mic's on, but we can't hear you. Could it? Are you able to maybe talk without your headphones? Would that help?
It might be useful, Matt, if you disconnect and reconnect. That might help.
If you maybe log out the conference and then come back in again.
Okay. So yeah, so that's how I got into the role. I'd had obviously a few years of experience volunteering at Childline, which obviously gave me an insight into what's involved. And what I would say is for anyone that is considering, working in the charity sector in any way, there's lots of fantastic charities out there. I'll always give a big, shout out to Childline. Because obviously I think we are a fantastic organisation. But if that's not something that would interest you, have a look. There's charities for pretty much everything out there, and all of them that I'm aware of anyway will have some kind of volunteer role that's available to people. So if it is something that interests you, it can be a great thing for the CV outside of the typical academic and work experience. Having a voluntary experience in a role that's completely different can really be of benefit for future career prospects. So if it is something that interests anyone, I would genuinely recommend just having a look on a charity's website that means something to you, and seeing what kind of opportunities that they do have there. Because if you'd have told me 10, 15 years, well, about 15 years ago now, that I'd be working for a charity and talking to children all day about whatever it is that's going on for them, I wouldn't have necessarily believed you. But having taken that kind of bit of a random stab in the dark to go for a volunteer opportunity, it's been one of the best decisions that I've ever made for myself. So I think if we're coming up on 12 now, so if I just leave it there for now. So yes, so the next thing I suppose we mentioned, obviously that's how I would recommend looking into working in the charity sector, is just research whatever charity it is that you'd potentially be interested in, and see what volunteer opportunities they have, or what staff opportunities that they have as well. Because the charity sector, I think, does offer some kind of unique opportunities that maybe a lot of others don't. What I would say is don't think about a career in the charity sector if you're interested in becoming a millionaire. It's not if you're working for a charity. Sometimes the pay isn't as good or as competitive as some other areas for similar roles. However, it's rewarding in a lot of other ways. Most charities tend to have very generous annual leave policies, and will do their best to support their staff. We've seen a lot of that, obviously, during the COVID pandemic. We've had to change a lot about how we're working, and we're doing our best to support our staff in as many in many different ways as possible. We've tried to furlough as few staff as we can, and make sure everyone's still being supported financially and in every other way as we can over this time. And also, it does provide a lot of other opportunities. We do occasionally get to meet some celebrities and work with them on various different projects. I think the last time we had the England cricket team come to visit us, this is obviously pre-pandemic now, but we do get to do a lot of work with people, celebrities that want to support our charity, which is fantastic. That can be occasionally. We also do get invites to places like Buckingham Palace and Downing Street. In fact, one of the volunteers at Childline who helped introduce me so that I could speak at this meeting she has been to both Buckingham Palace and Downing Street over the last 5 or 6 years, which doesn't necessarily happen to everyone, but those opportunities are there for sure. And also, we do get to work with other charities internationally. We do occasionally have secondments. I know a friend at work, she got to go live in Gibraltar for, I think it was 4 months, to help them set up their own equivalent to Childline. And I know that similar things have happened in places like Costa Rica and Panama. So it does occasionally lead to some really exciting, exotic travel opportunities and things like that. Again, not every day, but those kind of things are out there, which can be really exciting opportunities. And also, I think one of the things that I get when I talk about my role to other people who work in different areas is some people may feel that their particular role or whatever company they work for, they feel like a bit of a cog in a machine, or they can feel a bit like they don't necessarily believe in what the organisation does. It's just a job. Whereas for me, I've never felt that. I love my job. It can be stressful at times, but I very much enjoy what I'm doing, and feel part of a team that wants to do something great. We want to support as many young people as we can, and we do get some occasional real success stories that come out of young people contacting Childline and manage to go on to report abuse or to access support for their mental health following having spoken with us. And whenever we get a success story like that, we try and communicate that with our volunteers and our staff members to show them, the great work that they're doing. And it does kind of give you that nice warm feeling that I know personally in other jobs that I haven't had and have been missing. So that is a real plus, I would say, is to work for an organisation where you really believe in what they're doing, despite stresses. And I'm not always happy about having to do the Friday late shift when I'd rather be at home with friends and family. However, once you are there and you see the good work that we do get to do, it really does. It really makes driving in at 6 o'clock on a Friday afternoon feel a lot more palatable. So yeah, I would say it's definitely something that is worth considering. Has anyone got any questions that they would like to ask? I could probably go on all day about Childline, but has anyone got any specific questions or about Childline in general, working in the charity sector?
Thank you, Matt. I think we've had my colleague Chris shared quite a few links actually, so like a good website for charities in terms of vacancies. We've got another question. So what level of counselling did you do, and has this helped?
Yeah, so I did a level 3 counselling course, which I did at Solihull College a few years ago. I didn't have to do the level 2 because after speaking to the course director, they felt that the experience that I had at Childline as a volunteer would be more than enough for level 2. So I went in and did the level 3. And I have thought about going back and doing my level 4, but I haven't got around to that yet.
Okay, great. We have loads of other questions flooding in now. So we've got oh, here you are. Does it require you to have like a qualification to have a job in the charity sector?
That will depend from charity to charity. At Childline, we need if you're going to be on the supervisor level, we need a minimum of a level 3 qualification, either in healthcare, education, or social work. Any kind of qualification in those areas, and that's okay to be a supervisor.
Great stuff. We have a lot of thanks as well from students. So we've got from a few students. So that was very interesting. Thank you, Matt. Thank you for your amazing work. Thank you for your time and the information shared. You're doing a great job. Sounds amazing. Thank you from Chris, who asked the question. Another student, I didn't know Solihull College do counselling course, so that's something that they found out. Really useful. Thank you from another student. Okay, another student, thank you. If you have volunteered as part of the school service at the NSPCC, can you apply to Childline or for Childline?
That's absolutely fine to do both. I don't know of any at Birmingham that do both, but I know in the past we've definitely had volunteers that might do school service one day of the week and then Childline another day of the week. That's absolutely fine. Yeah.
Great stuff. More thank yous. Another student, thank you, Matt. It really got me thinking of what career prospects out there. So that's brilliant. That's from another student, and more thank yous coming through. I believe there might be a few more questions. Was there anything else that you wanted to add or maybe talk about? Maybe various ways students can get involved. Is it? I'm assuming it's through the website anyway.
Yeah, if anyone does want to get involved, the NSPCC website has a whole list of different volunteer opportunities and staff opportunities, and also for people that want to support us in other ways, we're always looking for fundraisers and people to help us out in that way. Obviously, COVID's had a big impact on how we fundraise, and things like the London Marathon haven't happened in the usual way, which is our biggest fundraising day. So anyone that's interested in doing some fundraising work, that's always massively appreciated.
Brilliant. We have another question from my colleague actually. What would you say are the top skills needed to work in your role, so the current role that you're in now?
I think organisation skills are probably the most important thing in the role that I'm in now, because there's a lot of meetings and commitments and deadlines and little projects that need to get finished within a certain time frame. So in fact, it's just next to me. My diary is always full of different times that I'm due different places and things like that. So I'd say being organized and being proactive are probably the most important things in any kind of management role in my experience. But I suppose for Childline in general, listening, being able to listen and remain calm are probably the two most important things there.
Great. That is quite a wide range of skills. Obviously that is required. So thank you very much for answering that. Okay, we have another question from a student. Does NSPCC consider post-16 teaching qualifications like level 3 education and training award?
I would assume so. I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head. However, if it's any kind of formal level 3 or higher qualification, I imagine would be considered, yeah.
Brilliant, great. Any more questions, guys, for Matt? I mean, that was great. Thank you very much for obviously sharing your side of the story, you know, your journey about the charity and how to get into that. I think a lot of students found that very useful. Thank you for your time, and there's plenty more thank yous coming in right now in the public chat. I believe that's it from us in terms of question wise. But again, thank you for your time. And if there is anything, okay, no, there's another question. Does NSPCC consider early childhood studies?
I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. However, if there was a position open that you were potentially considering, you can always just call the hiring manager and ask them about that, and they'd definitely be able to answer that question.
Okay, brilliant. I hope that answered the question, Muniba. So you can always contact them. So you can go on the website, isn't it, Matt? And then they can just ask the question directly that way. So no worries, that's fine. Any more questions before Matt disappears? And we're joined with the next speaker. I believe that's it, Matt. So thank you very much for your time.
No problem. Thank you.
And obviously for the talk as well. So thank you. Thank you very much for your time.
No problem. Cheers then.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. We are now joined by a last speaker. So if you just give us a couple of minutes, and we will be joined by Jessica very soon. Thank you. Hello, everyone. We are back with our final speaker. So can I please give a warm welcome to Jessica Hocknull, who works for Brays Special Needs School. Just a brief, as well as working in a special needs school, she's actually assistant head teacher. She also worked for a primary school that is part of a number of academies, and she'll be talking about her journey today and sharing this with you all. So without further ado, Jessica, can I pass it on to you? I made you presenter. So you should be able to flick through the slides. You would have to switch from headphones only to microphone. So if you click on the at the bottom microphone, you should be able to switch over from headphones to microphone. We can see you. I think Jessica just switching over to microphone. We can't hear you yet, Jessica. Now you should be able to talk through the mic. No, we still can't hear you. I'm not sure if anyone else can hear Jessica. No? Okay. No, is it, are you using your work laptop or? Start off with the volunteering side of things. Okay, great. We've got Hannah. So we've got that you don't have to stay in the same field which you're qualifying. Great. We've got Desi, the various opportunities available in the health and social care sector. Brilliant. That's good. Follow your dreams. Yes, follow your dreams, guys. Go with your gut. If you want to do something, you want to get out there, go out there and achieve it. Brilliant. Stand out from the crowd. Good. Bethany, again, you could do that by volunteering. Chris Miller, following your ambition, must have drive. Volunteering is very important. Again, volunteering has been mentioned many times. And yes, that's something we would definitely recommend. And Chris is someone who would vouch for that, because that is something that we do advise a lot of our students to try and get in. Then obviously Chris has shared quite a few good links as well. And I believe we are back. Jessica,
can you hear me? Finally?
Yeah, brilliant. We can hear you now. It's absolutely fine, don't worry. It's
Okay,
technology for you. No problem. That's fine. Whilst you were trying to relog back in, I just asked students questions in the public chat regarding one thing they've learned so far from today's conference. So they're talking about volunteering opportunities, various sectors, how they can get into it. Be happy with the work role you're doing. Great. The one person's learned skills, communications, help in different fields and opportunities. Great. And your qualification can lead to other options for jobs. Brilliant. Thank you, guys. Now that we're back from Jessica, I will pass it on to you, and I will make you presenter now. Actually, there you are. I'll pass it over to you.
Okay. Well, I'll just show my face quickly, and hopefully, I won't be sharing it, scaring anybody. Just bear with me. Right. Hopefully, you can see. Okay. So first of all, let's see. First of all, I'm going to say good afternoon, everyone. I'm a teacher at Brays Special School, and you'll find out a little bit more about why I'm doing some styling, which is called Macaton, further on as I'm doing my little talk. So what I'm going to do now is turn off the camera, and then I have a PowerPoint that I'm going to share with you. So if you just bear with me. So I am currently assistant head teacher at a special school in Birmingham. You will have to excuse the sound effects behind, because I'm currently in my office and it is very, very noisy, especially because it's lunchtime. So let's go. Okay, so to begin with my career path, I finished school and I was always really interested in drama and performing arts. So my progression and natural progression for me was to do a BTEC National Performing Arts at Walsall College, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And then after I completed that and I qualified, I then decided to go on to do a degree, a bachelor's honours degree in performing arts at De Montfort University in Bedford, which is no longer called that. And I just had an amazing time. And I always thought at some point that I did want to go into education, but I just wanted to see what doors would open for me. So when I graduated, I actually worked with some theatre companies, and the theatre companies that I worked with were teaching in education. So we would devise theatre shows linked to entrepreneurship, job prospects, and then we would go and tour it around different schools, and I absolutely loved it. But again, it gave me a lot of experience of being in schools, teaching drama in schools. So it was always something that I really was interested in, the drama side, but also the teaching as well. So after I did that, let me change the slide. After I did that, my pathway to becoming a teacher, I went back to UCB and I did a cash course, and it was the level 3 teaching assistant qualification. And the reason why I did this is because, you know, I wanted to gain experience in a school setting before I actually applied for a PGCE. And it was, you know, I felt that at least if I did the teaching assistant qualification, I could also gain something extra rather than volunteering. And also as well, you know, I was on placement, I gained the experience, but then I also learned a lot by, you know, attending the course, you know, things that I didn't understand, you know, like the organisational side of schools and actually what the role of a teaching assistant entailed and just the whole logistics of a classroom. So, yeah, so I did that. And then the following year, I applied for a PGCE and actually came to UCB. So I was already at UCB for my teaching assistant course. And then I applied, yeah, for the PGCE the following year. And the reason why I decided to do that path was because I felt that although my background is drama, you know, there's so many ways that I could have utilised. I felt I could utilise my skills in primary, and I also found common ground with other people that were on the course because there was some that had a real specialism in music, sports, you know. So, and I felt that by doing the PGC in primary rather than, you know, subject specialist, as in like trained to be a drama teacher, I felt that, you know, I could demonstrate my skill set to a much wider audience as it would be because, you know, in primary school you have like your Christmas nativities and you do have like your head of departments as well. So I really felt that this would be, yeah, the route for me. So with the PGCE, it was just, yeah, it was an amazing course. I would definitely say it was one of the best years of my life. And what I absolutely loved about the PGC at UCB was the different experiences that they gave us. They really, 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 really enabled us to have so many different experiences and opportunities. Really taught, I felt like I would learn how to plan and teach really well structured lessons and understand, you know, the reason why and what was important. And, you know, yeah, it was just a really supportive environment. You know, the lecturers that were on the course, again, they were really highly skilled and subject specific, and, you know, really, really learned a lot from them. And, you know, the opportunities that we had, yeah, were extremely valuable. Even now, you know, we had opportunities to go into the cooking facilities, and we cooked, and, you know, so it really gave us a really good breadth of experience and understanding of, you know, of what it would be like to be a teacher. And I also felt as well that the PGC, it is a very busy year, but, you know, I felt that it was really flexible with the approach, you know, and it enabled me to have my key interests pursued. You know, and even within the course, we did the special school experience, which was fantastic. And then we also did, we had like 2 weeks. I don't think they do it anymore, but we had 2 weeks where we could choose a project that we would focus on. And I chose forest school and developed like an outdoor sensory story for a few weeks, and, you know, differentiated it. And it just gave me a real understanding of what forest school is and the importance of outdoor learning. So that was it was a really, really valuable experience. With the PGCE, it gave me the opportunity to be in special school for 2 weeks. And this was really the start of my career, and I am so grateful that I was supported for this, like, alongside this role with my primary PGCE. So we had this special school experience, and we were all sent to, you know, various different special schools around Birmingham. And the special school that I went to, I was in a class with MLD and SLD pupils, which is moderate and severe learning pupils. And at the time, I just went in there just for an experience. But, you know, it was really good because here I learned how to assess progress against the P levels, which is learners that are working below national curriculum. The importance of augmentative communication, which is your Makaton, and you can see at the bottom, Makaton, it's linked to like receptive and expressive communication. So with Makaton, it's different to British Sign Language, where British Sign Language is actually known as a language, but Makaton, it's not. It's augmentative communication, which is where you pair, as you can see at the bottom, you pair a picture symbol, a sign, and a word together to support understanding for our learners. But and this is something that we consistently do throughout the whole school, and it's something that I picked up. It was another skill that I'd learned and the importance of it. We also looked at the barriers to learning, because with SEN children, the gaps are huge, and they're learners, real individuals, and they have really spiky learning profiles and bigger gaps than what you would in mainstream. So I learned that, in special, the job as a teacher is to identify those individual barriers, and so because children have a right, no matter what their disability, to an education and to be able to succeed in life. So, and I just absolutely felt that this was the way forward for me. So what I did was I asked my tutor at the time, for my second placement, could I stay? If I asked the school, could I stay at this school? Because I really felt that working in SEN was definitely for me. I felt it was so rewarding, and fortunately I was supported on this journey. And it was the best experience of the whole of my career to date, because it really gave me a focus and an understanding of where I was going to go in life. So I did at this school. I gained QTS, and I applied for a job at that special school. And this is where it took another turn, because at the time I'd been working with, on my placement, I'd been working with some SLD, so severe and moderate learning disability children. So, some of them we could teach, it was kind of like early years, it was learning through play, and a few, early maths and early English skills and some phonics. But when I got the job, I thought I was going to have that class, and I had the absolute shock of my life when the head teacher said, "Oh no, you're going to go into the PMLD class. That's where you're going to be." So I was like, "Oh my goodness me!" So PMLD is profound multiple learning difficulties. Now these are the children that are life limited, have extremely complex medical needs. Some of them are hearing impaired, some are visually impaired, some are both. Some of them need oxygen tanks on a daily basis to survive, and they have complex care staff, which are nurses with them on hand all the time. I remember going home that summer and I was like, goodness me, I do not even know how to teach a maths lesson to someone with complex needs that can't see. But I did lots of research. I went out to other schools, I observed good practice, and really started to begin my journey of understanding what a multisensory approach is and the importance of it, to profoundly disabled children. And I absolutely loved it. It was just the best thing ever. You could be so creative, but also make sure that what you were doing were really meaningful on a daily basis to these children. So while I was also there, so I had my baptism by fire with the PMLD pupils, but what I will say, which I think really helped my career too, was I constantly was enthusiastic and asked for other jobs. I was probably a bit of a pest actually, and I was like, was there anything I can do? I took on extra responsibility, did extra roles, and just really showed willing, and to show that I understood about how I could impact the school positively. So because of that, then the school, after my NQT year, which is my first year of teaching, they put me onto a middle leaders course, and I was like the only one there that was an RQT, and I was like, I felt so my depth, like with these assistant head teachers and these middle leaders, and I hadn't had any experience, but it was really good because it taught me how to be reflective, at another level. But so then I decided, then I was getting itchy feet. I thought, this is good, but I feel like I need to get experience in another environment, So I applied for a bigger school, and I went into a secondary PMLD class, which was, it was different, because I'd gone from a school of 90 children to a school of 260 children. And the reason why is because the school had a larger PMLD department. So I felt that I could really develop my own knowledge and understanding of complex learners, so I could really have an impact and show how they could progress over time, because they don't learn in a linear manner like most pupils, not most children do. It's very lateral and very slow, small steps. I also wanted to understand the importance of a multisensory approach to learning, and the benefits that this would have on my learners. So as you can see there, I've just added just a little bit of information about multisensory learning, and it means learning through more than one sensory system at a time. And it was so important for me to understand about if a child is hearing impaired and visually impaired, then I need to be focusing on the taste and the smell and the touch, because they can't see and they can't hear, and that was helping, that helps them to progress and achieve. But if you can see there, it says with a multisensory approach, it increases concentration and focuses attention. It develops or reactivates senses of hearing, sight, smell, touch and taste, heightens awareness and improves alertness, improves coordination and motor development. It promotes cognitive development, which is your brain power. That's the problem solving and the thinking, the cognitive development, and increases brain function. And it encourages people to explore their environment. And one thing that I'm really passionate about with all children, it's about ensuring that they're able to be independent, and whether that's in a school setting or a care setting or a nursery, we really want to encourage independence in children. So this brings us to currently. So currently, well, before I speak about what my current role is, whilst I was at the school that I was at, the big school, the bigger school, I was the lead of initial teacher training, the school direct, and I used to work in partnership with UCB. So that was really interesting. I led projects across my department and across the school. So I was able to so I was able to develop communication and more in-depth, further in-depth knowledge, and also I wanted more of a challenge. So currently that's why I'm an assistant head teacher at Brays, because I wanted to be in more of a senior leadership role, and I wanted to be in charge, behind developing visions and the future direction of the school that I'm at now. So I've probably gone over time. So if there are any questions, I'd like to thank you for listening today. And if there are any questions, I will be happy to help.
Thank you so much, Jessica. That was really good. And I can actually tell you now that we have had really positive responses in our public chat. So I could read them through for you, because I know you're on a mobile phone right now, so it might be difficult. Oh, hold on. Sorry, there's so many coming in. I'm going to end up missing some of them. Chris, so we still do that PCE, so possibly the course that you mentioned earlier. Another person, what an incredible skill set you have. I can tell you bring joy to so many children daily, which is absolutely amazing. My colleague Chris, I agree, Mike, Mike who made that comment, passion to make a difference came out in that part of the presentation, which is absolutely great. Many thank yous from students. Here you are, we've got one question. If you're able to name the previous schools, you were at, so maybe prior to where you're working now.
So one was the Bridge School in Sutton, and the other school was Wilson Stewart. So, and Wilson Stewart have lots of links with UCB.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was really interesting. Thank you. Then we got loads of thank yous. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you. So interesting. Thank you again. Thank you for your time and sharing your story. Great stuff. Your passion shines through. I am learning disabilities. I am a learning disabilities nurse and loving this. So that's great. Great to hear about a different journey within education. Thank you. It takes a special person to teach at a special school. My son is at Hamilton and the staff are so amazing, which has made me want to explore teaching in special needs. And that's from a student. So that's great. Thank you. That was amazing. Thank you. Oh, Wilson Stewart has amazing facilities. That's from another student. Thank you. Any more questions, guys? So yeah, so that's a lot of positive comments in there, and a lot of thank yous, and of course for your time from all of us, all the staff. Thank you very much. Hey, I've got one question from Chris. Anyone wanting to work with SEN in the future, what best would you give to get into the sector? Like best tip?
Work anyone that I'd probably volunteer, or I got into SEN before teaching by being a support worker to brain injury children and children with spina bifida. So I take them bowling and things. And I know there's a lot of teachers that I've worked with that are support workers still to children in SEN. So I would definitely, go down that route. And then when you do go down that route, you will have training about brain injury, and it just really, I felt doing the healthcare side first really helped in special before I did the educational side.
Was that at Headway by any chance?
No, this was
okay.
No.
No worries, that's fine. It was just a question in the public chat. Hope that answered your question, Chris. But yeah, I believe that was the last question. But on behalf of all of us, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I know there's a few technical glitches, but that's quite normal, so not to worry. Our students are used to that now, so it's absolutely no problem whatsoever. But no, thank you very much for your time, Jess. We do really appreciate that, and for the insightful presentation that you gave. So thank you very much.
You're welcome, and it was lovely to obviously have the time to talk today. Enjoy the rest of the day, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Yeah, so that brings all the talks, really, all the speakers to an end today. And we do thank every single one of them out of the time who spoke to every single one of you. And a special thanks from me as well, not only to the speakers, but to the staff members that have stayed throughout, every single presentation, or, even if it's a couple, and to every single student that has, been here since 10 o'clock listening to each speaker, whether it's 1, 2, how many of the speakers you guys have been listening to. And I hope it's, giving you guys a better idea now in what on what you wish to do in terms of progression, career-wise. Obviously, earlier on, you guys mentioned how much you guys have learned today, how interesting it's been. Recording-wise, what's going to happen is we have to, due to GDPR, we have to get this edited. So because some of our staff have been on furlough, they only just returned, I believe, last week. So I'm going to send this link across. They're going to just do a bit of editing with the names. And then once it's ready, those that are registered, I will send the link across, and we will be adding it online. It won't be in Canvas. However, Chris, it can be shared on Canvas if you've got access to it. If not, then I'll share it to those who registered. I've got all the email addresses anyway. I can share it with you guys later. So that might not be till after Easter, guys. So it might be a bit of a delay because obviously staff are just coming back slowly from furlough as well. So we're just waiting for some of the members from the media team to come back. But other than that, thank you very much. And obviously Anne's not here at the moment because she's interviewing all afternoon. Thank you to all the staff for the support, all the students that have been listening in. And thank you for myself. Just a reminder, my name is Sabbath and I work within Hired. So for those of you who don't know, Hired are based in Moss House, which is a new building next door to McIntyre House. Ground floor on the right-hand side. You can check out our services online. You can check out Hired Connect on any of the services or resources you may want to access. And I work a lot alongside with employee engagement. I work very closely with your school, and so we do try our best to source as much as we can. And as well as that, I work with alumni, so those that graduated see what they're up to share their story and everything else. But yeah, thank you for all your support. Thank you, Chris. No problem at all. As long as each and every single one of you have learned something from today's talks or sessions, for me, that's a big smile on my face. And as long as it's beneficial for the students, that's the main thing. And thank you, Julie, of course, for your support as well in this past few months in arranging this conference. And obviously helping with employers, and thank you to all the students. So thank you very much. And I won't say no more after this now. So yeah, thank you very much.